God is good, and with each day that passes brings us a day closer to the launch of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. And today we're going to be discussing the September development update for Pantheon, our upcoming MMO home, and it was packed full of information. The human playable race has had a major update to optimize and make armor fitting faster for development, as well as animations that are looking very fluid and professional. And then we got class updates for the Rogue, Enchanter, as well as the Cleric. Now, big question you all want to hear, so I'm just going to tell you right now, the next pre-alpha test date and information is supposed to be announced this evening here on Friday, September 16th, 2022, on their official Discord on the pre-alpha channel available for VIP members. Now, before we dive into all this information, if you are new here and love MMORPGs, please consider subscribing to the channel, because that's what we do here all day every day, and more content than any mere mortal could possibly consume. And please consider liking the video, and if you want to support the channel, use super thanks down below or join the channel for exclusives. Now, let's get going. So the character models and animation was something they showed off, and the human models have been updated, and all the other models will be added in roughly 3-week chunks per model for the playable races. You can expect the same amount of detail and art style for all of the races. They were remodeled and re-rigged due to concerns with armor fitting and making them more optimized, as well as having a better aesthetic and more in line with the vision and the concept art. With the old models, they had to refit every piece of gear due to mass amounts of gear that the game will have, which is great news. This would have been a huge time sink. They were able to bring the old model, which was around 27,000 polygons, down to 22,000 polygons with this human model, and I think we can all agree it looks a lot better as well, more pleasing to the eye. Bones in the model, they've actually reduced the amount, as they have found some of the old ones weren't going to be used, but it still has an impressive 155 bones to use for rigging and animation. They have also found a way to allow rigging for animations to be applied across all the playable races, which once again allows time-saving techniques to be used. The humans are now in their final stages. Next up is the Dark Mer, Archai, Scar, Ogre, Elf, Dwarf, Halfling, and then Gnome. And it is expected to take about 3 weeks per race. We finally got a look at these new animations, and I'm very impressed. These animations are on par and even beyond most MMOs on the market today. Take a look at some of these facial expressions, and I think we can see that the new models have enough geometry and flexibility for the animation team to really add a lot of character and life. These small details are what makes the overall appearance and immersion and feeling of like the towns or hunting down in dungeons so extremely addicting. After all, we will see these animations over and over and over, so it is important that they look natural and fun. They're nailing it so far, and in my opinion, nothing will make Pantheon look closer to launch than seeing all the animations in, and will allow the graphics to look that much better as the models look less stiff and are now so much more fluid. It really is a night and day difference here. Character customization was also discussed. They are now going to be able to offer a lot of cool things that wouldn't have been possible with the old models, such as targeted customization, and some of the features mentioned, of course this isn't all, but changing facial features, height, how thick their legs are, and so much more. So everything is being set up to allow speed in development time and optimization. Even with a massive amount of armors available, for example, the fitting to the models has been set up to be fast for the team, which is very important at this point in development. Also, Tara and Duarte, who are making these models and animations, as well as the creatures, were a real joy, and it was an excellent interview. Now, real quick before we get into the class updates, let's hear a word about our sponsors, the members of Napalm, and then we'll be back. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to the members of Napalm. They have strapped on their armor and are casting the spells of awesome by supporting this channel every month. Thank you so much. And I think you are interested in becoming a member. You can do so by clicking join down below this video and pick a level that is right for you. And I would like to give a very special thank you to the Lords of Napalm. Bounty Code, Jared Woodhouse, Daimless, Farthest Reach, Sparrow, Christopher Hensel, Random Rob, Kenneth Kramer, Zelic Lived, Rodden Your Mom, Greenhouse, Vander, and Galerain Moonsong. Thank you for your highest tier membership. Next up is the class updates. So first off, we had the Rogue. Now, I want to note here real quick that Opportunity is a resource used while in stealth for rogues, and readiness is used for weapon techniques, just so you can help understand these. Now, we did have Skullcracker, which is an attack that can stun when used behind and can disorient the enemy, making them more vulnerable to crowd control effects. Now remember that, because next up we have Flash Bomb, which activates Shadow Step, stuns the enemy for 3 seconds and blinding them for 15 seconds. And then we got Smoke Trick, which incapacitates the enemy for 15 seconds, will break with any damage done, however, and a great follow-up after Skullcracker, because if the enemy is disoriented, which is what Skullcracker does, the duration increases by 50% and it cannot be resisted by disoriented mobs. Also, a good follow-up after Flash Bomb, because if stunned by Flash Bomb, target loses threat against the rogue. So as you can see, this can be used in multiple different ways depending on how you set that up, which makes the gameplay and your decisions and that strategic combat we're always talking about much more important, and you'll see even more as we continue. Now next up we had Opportunity Strike, which is a dagger weapon technique. It does 150% weapon damage but consumes all opportunity points, which, like I said before, isn't your stealth type rogue resource. And the more opportunity points you have, the more the damage is multiplied. Higher accuracy when done from behind the mob, and it gives agility 20% and dexterity 20%. And then they announced the last for the rogue so far, which is Opportunism, which can consume 1 opportunity to grant 250 readiness. So kind of swapping that out so you can kind of switch from your stealth mode into being out of stealth and using weapon techniques. Very cool. Next up we have the Enchanter updates, and they talked about Mesmerize, which mezzes the target for 1 minute. It will use 1 mana every 3 seconds that you maintain this effect. We'll come back to this more in a minute. Any damage to mob breaks the mez, however the force of will cost goes away and the mez can't be resisted if the mob is disoriented. Next up we have Discordant Divination. Unleash a storm of mana of moderate damage that uses a random type of magic to the target. So you gotta be careful when you use this. There's a little bit of RNG because it could be something that the mob is resistant against, or even worse, something that makes the situation turn deadly even. Now the higher the evocation skill, the less chance of this being resisted, and that'll be a fun ability for the Enchanter for sure. Next up we have Brain Freeze, which, by the way, this is the one where I was like, man, these icons for these abilities is AAA. I love them. Now Brain Freeze interrupts the mob for up to 1 minute, which is awesome. And then we have Vision of Restoration. This is a buff that increases restoration skill by 1 for 36 minutes. This is considered a gift, and the Enchanter can only cast 1 at a time. The higher the augmentation skill for the Enchanter, however, the more the buff will increase the restoration skill. Then we have Mental Fortification, which allows a friendly target to prevent being interrupted from taking damage. In other words, I kind of feel like that's kind of weirdly worded. What that means is that when that friendly target is taking damage, they can cast and they won't be interrupted. Now we have the Cleric updates, such as Invigorate, which restores 50 endurance and allows them to regen 10 endurance every 3 seconds for 36 minutes, which, like they said in the stream, would allow for out of combat things as well, such as sprinting and climbing for longer. Celestial Guard. Now this one restores health and absorbs damage equal to 180% of healing done for 30 seconds. If target is below 20%, however, it does Celestial Preservation for 30 seconds, absorbing 360% of healing done. Now, that is an interesting ability. And then we have the Tome of the Initiate, a summon of a tome that, while equipped, auto attacks will restore 1 mana. Now, they mentioned earlier that this wasn't just something that could be summoned for the Cleric, but that it could be something summoned for your allies as well. So this could be a really good tactic that it sounds like you maybe would have to hold it in a hand, so maybe you'd have to give up that shield for a while, lose a little defense. However, you could restore some mana and really cut down on your downtime. Then we've got Bonds of Faith, which allows certain abilities to restore health when used. And then we have Faithful Strike. If under Bonds of Faith, it will heal that target for 100% of the damage dealt, and it deals 80% weapon damage as divine damage, and it also gives Wisdom 15% and Strength 5%. Now, as you can see, as I described those, it kind of has your mind kind of twirling. healing. And you can kind of see the strategy here. And you can see how different classes working together can get things done better. Well, it looks like the Enchanter and the Rogue have some kind of corresponding abilities there, so that they can kind of work in tandem, work together, and get things done in a better way. And I love the Cleric and how that's all up in your face, melee to heal, and it's going to be a very interesting healing class and very different from everything we've seen so far, which really gives that class its own dependency, its own style, and its own way of healing, which of course means that for people that like healer classes, man, you're going to have options here, and playing a different healing class is going to be totally different. We can also see that speccing your class and what gear you wear as well, and all the ways that as that increases skill levels, your abilities get stronger, and it just makes everything feel really, really good, I feel like, and I'm super excited for these to be tried out. Now, overall, the September's update was very exciting. The animations are something that I'm very passionate about. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The animations being added are the nail in the graphics that allow us to really see this world and appreciate everything else. The animations can make an ability more fun to do. It can make us invested in our character and make everything in the world feel alive. It is one of the most important and crucial pieces of the tech that will make or break this game. So much of what we love and enjoy is tied to these animations, and from the sample we saw this month, it is in the right hands. And honestly, if you compare it with AAA MMOs, you will find that this is beyond most and on par with the best in the industry. Not to mention that I feel the humans are showing us the style of art we can expect from the other races. You can see the individual character now, and it no longer looks generic fantasy. Just like they've updated the world with their own custom art and it no longer looks generic, I feel they've done the same now for the human models. It is like seeing Pantheon growing up and becoming the full-fledged MMO that we will live in for decades, and I'm all here for it. I hope you enjoyed the video today, and please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Help me grow, and if you'd like to help me pay the bills, consider giving me a super thanks below. Thank you all for joining me for the September recap, and until next time, my friends, God bless and happy gaming.